Hi everyone. So the disability that I chose was cerebral palsy, but I did not have access to a young student with this disability. So all the information about my focus learner came from a case study done by another teacher. So my focus student was named Matthew. He's in first grade and diagnosed with cerebral palsy. Academically, he was functioning very much below grade level in all areas, but he is in a general education classroom with special education supports. Physically, he has very low mobility. He's in an electrically powered wheelchair. He keeps his left hand in a splint, and he has difficulties raising both of his arms up and above his head, and he also has difficulties holding objects and with fine motor movements as well as gross motor movements. He also experiences processing delays due to the cerebral palsy. So the lesson that I had planned was a math lesson, and for the other students in the class, the objective was for them to add and subtract within 10 with 80% accuracy. Whereas for Matthew, since his academic abilities were a little bit lower, his objective was to identify numbers between 0 and 9 and to make one-to-one correspondence when counting these numbers and representing numbers with quantities with 70% accuracy. So to start the lesson, I would play students a song about adding and subtracting to gain their attention and make them engaged in the lesson. I'll put the link in the description below to the song. And after the song, I would ask them, what does it mean to add? What does it mean to subtract? Can you give me some examples? So they would already have previously had experience with adding and subtracting. This would be a review. They would turn and talk to a partner and share out. Then I would write these two equations on the board. I would write 6 plus 5 and 8 minus 3 equals. For Matthew, when I wrote these on the board, I would ask him to work on identifying what number this is, because when the numbers are out of order, not in counting order, he has difficulty identifying them. So I would ask him to identify the numbers. And for the other students, I would ask them to discuss with a partner strategies for solving these and what the difference is between these two problems. So they can turn and talk to a partner, share out. We were talking about using a number line, counting on, making 10, using manipulatives, all strategies that they would have been exposed to previously. And we would solve them as a class using those strategies. Then for the guided practice, I had a game for them to play. So I would break them up based on their ability level into small groups. And I wanted to do group work because verbal communication is one of Matthew's strengths. So I thought that he could use that strength to help him on his challenges in math. So each group would receive one of these, and they're labeled. The individual boxes are labeled from numbers 0 to 9. If I had a group who needed to be challenged, I would write higher numbers. Maybe I'd do 0 to 20 so that they can be challenged a little bit more. And the way that the game would work is that students would throw ping pong balls into the slots. So they would throw them from a distance, and let's say they got it in the 5 and the 3. What they would then do is take an index card and flip it over, and it would either have an addition sign or subtraction sign. So this one was an addition side. They would have to do 5 plus 3. All members of the group would solve the problem. I would give them manipulatives, number lines, whiteboards, anything that they wanted to use. And then they would talk within their groups about what strategy did they use, did they all get the same answer, and talk it out. Then the next person would go. During this process, I would walk around from group to group, and I would give them behavior-specific descriptive praise as feedback. The textbook says that this is a more effective way to give feedback, and it promotes positive behavior. So I might say something like, oh, I love the way that you started with the larger number 5 and counted up to 3. That was a really great strategy, so that they know exactly what they did that was good. Now for Matthew during this activity, he has difficulties with gross motor movements such as throwing the ping pong ball. So I would have one of his peers hold this for him, which is a paper towel roll, and he can just slide his ping pong ball through and out the other end into the box. Now, when he gets his numbers, he will work on verbally identifying them. So he would say, oh, that's a 5, that's a 3. And then he would count them out with counters using one-to-one correspondence. So for the number 3, he would go 1, 2, 3. And then he would know he had 3. The textbook says that counting without matching the item to the number being counted may interfere with the student's development of number sense. So that's why I would have him work on that one-to-one correspondence and identifying the numbers when they are out of order. I would also have him use this because he does have problems with gross motor movement, and the textbook also says that students with cerebral palsy are often less active than their peers, and they may get fatigued easier. So after students have a little bit of time to play that game, I would have them do some independent practice. So for the other students in the class, they would be working on this worksheet, which has 10 questions, a mixture of adding and subtracting. As students were working on this, I would circulate around the room and ask students about the questions that they were answering, what strategies are they using, things like that, and I would take anecdotal notes. And then for Matthew, he would have something looking like this, where he has a number and a box, and I would give him a bingo marker, and what he would have to do is count out, identify the number 3, and then count out 3 dots. So he would make 3 marks, 1, 2, 3. So it would look something like this when he finished, and he has all the numbers 0 through 9. This would be my summative assessment that I can take and evaluate to see if the students met the objectives. And then to wrap up the lesson, I would gather my students on the carpet and kind of have them reflect what was easy about the lesson, what was hard about the lesson, what kind of strategies did you use. And that's it. And throughout the lesson, since Matthew does have processing delays, I would also break down and repeat directions for him. And that's all. Thank you.